And this week's economic reports haven't made it easy to decipher the state of the economy. This morning's retail sales showed consumers kept spending in July, but consumer sentiment for the month dropped to its lowest level since May. These reports come after yesterday. We saw wholesale prices rising far more than expected, but CPI was lighter than expectations, at least on the top line. Joining us now is Gene Sperling, former director of the National Economic Council under President Obama and President Clinton. He's also the only person to be in that role twice across two different administrations. It's great to have you on, and let's start right there. What do you make of the economic data we have gotten so far?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, there were some mixed messages, but I think the overall story is a somewhat unfortunate one, that if you go back to November and December, you really had uniform expectations of that, beautiful soft landing, right? If you look at Goldman Sachs, if you look at the IMF, they're projecting around 2.5% growth, about 2% inflation. Now what you're seeing is not stagflation, but kind of stagflationary direction. You're seeing growth look a little weaker, going more towards 1%. You're seeing inflation going up to 3%. And it puts the Federal Reserve, as you note, in a difficult situation when you have stagflation. Do you focus on the weakness in the economy and cut, or do you worry about the inflation you're already seeing and the estimates that the amount being passed through on tariffs to consumers has been relatively light so far, maybe 25 to 50%, but is now headed to closer to 70% and higher, a higher inflation? I think the thing that was really tricky in these numbers was that retail sales, were pretty solid, which would suggest maybe you should be worried more about inflation, because when you look at that consumer sentiment, what's really striking to me is not only are you having the lowest consumer sentiment outside of the pandemic and financial crisis, but when you look at what the average person expects on inflation, Election Day 2024, it was 2.6. Now it's 4.9. So if you're at the Federal Reserve, you're looking and saying, well, we're seeing weakness in the jobs and the economy, but retail spending was okay. Yeah. But inflation's going up, and inflation expectations have almost doubled since November. And that's just the unfortunate part about this tariff policy. It has a stagflationary direction. It lowers growth and it raises inflation at the same time. Yeah. So it's not an easy time to be at the Federal Reserve, even if you didn't have the president yelling at you all the time.